Volume 1, Chapter 2, The Necronomicon. It was well after sundown when Sybil arrived at the old cemetery. The Necronomicon was buried around here somewhere. Sybil walked carefully toward a short stone wall and glanced up at the sky as gray clouds released a torrent of rain. The wind was whipping her face. Sybil had to squint her eyes to see and quivered from the cold raindrops as she hid behind the weather-beaten wall and peeked over its edge. For men were pacing around the cemetery. She took a deep breath and bolted over the wall.
Well, what have we here? You gentlemen aren't afraid of ghosts, are you?
Perhaps they were here to pay their respects to a dearly departed loved one. She exhaled. At this hour? In this weather? Not very likely. As she observed the foursome, the men turned and slowly came toward her, growling like rabid dogs. They definitely weren't here to pay their respects. First of all, they walked weirdly rather stiff and stumbling. These were zombies. What would Buffy Summers do? She thought while visions of the blonde vampire slayer flashed through her mind. She drew her sword. Sybil's lips and chin trembled, and not only because of the cold. Her heart was pounding like crazy in her chest when the zombies stumbled toward her with their grasping hands held out in front of them. Their jaws opened as if they were excited by the smell of flesh. A foul stink reached her nostrils while she literally stood face to face with the enemy. Rotting flesh, hollow eye sockets, and some faces were slightly covered with worms. Sybil held her breath and swung her sword over her head. With a solid slash, she pierced one of the zombies in the skull. She pulled out the sword, creating a nasty sound as she did so. The corpse dropped to the ground and fell apart. Only a greasy, mud-like substance remained, making the ground extra slippery under her feet while the other 3 zombies tried to grab her. Sybil lost her balance and slipped, smashing her back onto the sticky substance. A zombie fell on top of her. Gagging, she clenched her jaw while the zombie tried to bite her. The remaining zombies also stumbled upon her. She was now laying beneath 3 hungry, growling, biting zombies. A few teeth came near her face, and she grimaced when a few maggots dropped close to her cheek. Feeling groggy, she sprained her muscles, pushing away the biting zombie. Her fingers crushed into its soft eye sockets. Bones cracked, sounding like snapping wood while she pushed harder. But finally, she cleared her waistline, glanced sideways, and noticed her sword lying in the mud. The slippery ground now worked to her advantage, and she crawled out from under the soaking wet foul bodies. Her fingers reached the sword at the same time a zombie grabbed her leg. Before he could do any damage, she picked up the sword and pierced its skull. She stood and finished off the 2 other zombies the same manner. She gasped for air and wiped her face. God, she yearned for a warm, foamy bath right now with lots and lots of soap. But there was much to do before she could go back to the house. Sybil sheathed her sword and used the rain to clean the sticky substance and worms from her face. Feeling a little better, despite the cold, she glanced around, using her cell phone as a flashlight as she wandered across the land of the dead. She was shining the flashlight from left to right on many nearby graves when she heard a low, feral growl from behind her. Her heart stopped for a moment when she stared into the sinister eyes of wolves. Sybil knew that wolves were faster, more agile, and no comparison to mindless zombies. Without giving it much thought, she rushed between the graves, toward a huge monument of Gothic design. This one looked wide enough to cover her back against the wolves. Near the monument, she found herself face to face with a real skeleton with glittering eye sockets. It produced a shrill noise that reminded her of the awful squeal sound of fingernails against a blackboard. It triggered a long-forgotten childhood memory. She recalled the face of her sadistic teacher from her first day of school. His dark, beady eyes behind his glasses had made her shiver with fear. She shuddered involuntarily and took a deep breath as she took into account her surroundings. In front of her was the skeleton. Behind her were the wolves. It didn't look good either way. She had precious little time to decide what to do, because the wolves would be upon her in seconds and, judging by their growls, they didn't mean well. Sybil took the path of least resistance. Running toward the skeleton, she yanked out her sword. With a heavy blow, she struck its skull. It fell apart with a thunderous roar. The only thing that remained was a layer of white dust on the ground. She didn't have time to praise herself for the victory. The wolves were quickly approaching. Fortunately, she was near the monument. It provided sufficient rear protection. She gasped for air, scanning the wolves closely as she leaned against the monument. The wolves crept forward like trained police dogs, which baffled her because it wasn't how wild wolves normally behaved. With a stern face, she grabbed her Uzi and shot into the air to scare them away. To her horror, they didn't respond. A wolf was now so close to her that it risked a leap. In a reflex, Sybil kicked its head. With a high-pitched whine, it flew through the air and landed with a heavy smack against a nearby tombstone. The wolf shook its head and leaped toward her once again. To save bullets, Sybil didn't have extra ammo. She caught it with her sword. The sharp point stabbed through its throat with a cracking sound. The wolf closed its eyes as its life was drained. Blood gushed from its neck while its skin began to ripple until it became a human laying in front of her.